I need to tell you about 3 women. I know their stories because one of them is my mother. The first is a retired schoolteacher named Doris, 71, living alone in a ranch-style house outside of Topeka. Last November, right around the time the first frost hit, Doris noticed something strange in her bathroom. Her urine had taken on a smell she could only describe as burnt sugar, or maybe something closer to overripe fruit that had been sitting on the counter too long, past the point where you'd want it near your kitchen. She cleaned the toilet, she changed her soap, she drank more water, and she told absolutely nobody. The second is a woman named Claudette, 64, who gardens every Saturday morning, rain or shine, in a suburb south of Atlanta. Claudette's urine started smelling metallic. Not like blood exactly, but sharper, like she'd been handling old pennies and the smell had gotten inside her somehow. She mentioned it to her daughter over the phone. Her daughter said, "Mom, drink more cranberry juice." So Claudette drank cranberry juice for 3 months. The third is my own mother, and I almost can't write this part without my hands shaking a little. Because when she finally described to me what her urine smelled like, this thick, almost syrupy sweetness that filled the small bathroom off her hallway, I knew exactly what it meant. I knew because I'd been reading about it for years, and I still almost missed it in the person I love most in this world. All 3 of these women shared one thing: not the same zip code, not the same diet, not the same medical history. What they shared was a pancreas that had been whispering for help through the only channel it had left, through the smell of what their bodies were releasing every single day. And 2 of those 3 women didn't hear that whisper until the whisper became a scream. That is why I'm sitting here with Dr. Winslow today, because I made him a promise. I said I would help him put this information out in a way that doesn't sound like a textbook, doesn't sound like a lecture, but sounds like what it is: a daughter begging you to pay attention to something that could save your life, or the life of someone who sits across from you at the dinner table every evening. So let me walk you through this, not as a writer, as someone who has stood in a hospital hallway at 2 a.m, bargaining with God. Your urine is a letter your body writes to you every single day, and most of us throw it away without reading it. I understand that. I did it too. Nobody wants to analyze what's in the toilet bowl. It feels strange, maybe even embarrassing. But I need you to think of it differently now. Think of your body like a kitchen. A busy, complicated kitchen with dozens of processes running at once. Things being broken down, things being mixed, things being stored for later, things being thrown out. Your pancreas is the head chef in that kitchen. It manages insulin, which is how your body processes sugar. It produces digestive enzymes, the tools that break your food into usable parts. And it regulates how ingredients move through you, what gets absorbed, what gets discarded. When that head chef is healthy and sharp, everything runs smoothly. The kitchen smells clean. What goes out the back door, your urine, smells like, well, nothing much. Maybe mildly like whatever you had for dinner last night. Asparagus, coffee, nothing alarming. But when the head chef gets sick, when the pancreas is struggling, or, God forbid, under siege from something more serious, the kitchen starts to go wrong in ways you can smell. The ingredients aren't being processed correctly. Sugar is fermenting where it shouldn't be. Fats are spoiling in the bloodstream instead of being broken down. And the waste that your kidneys filter out and send to your bladder carries the evidence of that spoilage. That's what urine odor is. Evidence. I didn't understand this when I was younger. I thought urine just smelled like urine. My mother certainly never talked about it. Her generation didn't discuss bathroom details. Not at church, not at bridge club, not even with their doctors most of the time. And I think that silence cost her months of early warning. Let me describe the specific smells, because this matters. This isn't vague. The pancreas doesn't send one generic distress signal. It sends different ones depending on what's going wrong. And each smell corresponds to a different process breaking down inside that kitchen. The first smell is sweetness, not pleasant sweetness. A thick, almost cloying sweetness, like maple syrup that's been left in a hot car, or fruit juice that's turned. When your pancreas can no longer produce enough insulin, or when the insulin it produces isn't working the way it should, sugar accumulates in your blood. Your kidneys, which are really the plumbing system of your body, try to flush out that excess sugar. It pours into your urine, and that urine smells sweet. Diabetic ketoacidosis, that's the medical term for the severe version of this, can produce urine that smells so sweet a person in the next room might notice it. My mother's bathroom smelled like a fruit stand. I noticed it on a visit in March and thought she'd been using a new air freshener. She hadn't. The second smell is something closer to ammonia, but not the clean, sharp ammonia of a well-kept pool. It's a heavier, more pungent ammonia, almost rotten. This one is trickier to interpret because ammonia in urine can point to dehydration, urinary tract infections, or kidney trouble. But when the pancreas is involved, specifically when pancreatic enzymes aren't doing their job, proteins in your food don't get properly digested. Those partially broken down proteins produce nitrogen-heavy waste compounds. Your kidneys dump them. The result is a thick, almost barnyard ammonia that doesn't go away when you drink more water. It's the smell of protein spoiling because nobody's cooking it right. The head chef has walked away from the stove. The third smell, and this is the one that haunts me, is a musty, almost oily smell. Some people describe it as greasy. Others say it's like wet cardboard mixed with something metallic. This odor can be linked to fat malabsorption, which happens when the pancreas isn't releasing enough lipase, the enzyme that breaks down dietary fats. Instead of being absorbed in your intestine, fats pass through your system and affect both your stool and your urine. If your urine has a strange, oily film or a musty smell that you've never noticed before, and especially if you're also noticing your stool has become pale or greasy or floats when it didn't used to, that's not aging. That's not a weird Tuesday. That is your pancreas waving a red flag with both hands. Now I want to stop here for a moment because, actually, let me say that differently. I want to be honest about something that I think matters. I am not trying to frighten you. I know what it feels like to read health content on the internet and feel your chest tighten with every paragraph. When my mother was going through her diagnosis, I made the mistake of reading everything I could find at midnight on my phone, and half of it was alarmist garbage designed to make me click another link. I don't want to be that. I refuse to be that. What I'm trying to do is give you vocabulary. Because my mother didn't have the vocabulary. She didn't know that urine could carry information. She thought the sweetness was her new medication. She thought the occasional oily look to her urine was just because she'd had salmon for dinner. And by the time she brought it up to her doctor, only because I pushed her hard on a Sunday afternoon in April when the dogwoods were blooming, her pancreatic function had declined significantly. Not catastrophically. We were lucky. But significantly enough that her doctor looked at me in the hallway and said, "It's good you caught this when you did." Caught it. Like it was something thrown at her that she was supposed to catch with her bare hands. And that's what makes me angry, honestly. Because nobody told her what to look for. Nobody ever sat her down and said, pay attention to what your body is putting out, not just what you're putting in. Anyway, let me talk about what the pancreas is actually doing when these changes happen. Because I think understanding the recipe, helps you take it seriously. Your pancreas sits behind your stomach, tucked away like a sponge about 6 inches long. It's one of those organs you never think about until it demands your attention. It has 2 main jobs. The first is what doctors call its endocrine function. It produces insulin and glucagon through clusters of cells called the islets of Langerhans. And these hormones manage your blood sugar minute by minute, like a thermostat you never have to touch. The second is its exocrine function. It produces digestive enzymes, including lipase for fats, amylase for carbohydrates, and protease for proteins. These enzymes flow through the pancreatic duct into your small intestine, where they meet your food and break it into parts your body can use. When either of these functions falters, the entire kitchen goes sideways. If insulin production drops or your cells stop responding to it, sugar stays in the blood and eventually overflows into the urine. That's the sweet smell. If enzyme production drops, food doesn't get processed. Fats, sugars, and proteins pass through partially digested, producing waste products that carry abnormal odors. Your urine becomes a running report card of what's going wrong upstream. And there's something else I need to say here. Pancreatic problems don't always start with pain. I think most people imagine that a sick pancreas would hurt, and it can, terribly, in the case of acute pancreatitis. But chronic pancreatic insufficiency, and even certain early-stage pancreatic growths, can develop without significant significant pain. They are quiet. They do their damage in the kitchen while the lights are off and you're sleeping in the next room. The smell in your urine might be the only sign that anything is wrong. Weeks or even months before you'd feel symptoms you'd recognize as illness. That's what happened to Doris, the retired teacher I mentioned. She had no pain, no nausea, no weight loss, not at first, just the smell. And she ignored it because it wasn't something that hurt. I want to share what my mother's doctor told us because it shifted how I think about all of this. He said the pancreas is like the foundation of a house. When it's solid, you never think about it. The walls stand, the roof holds, everything works, and you walk around on it without a second thought. But when it cracks, when the foundation shifts, you don't always see the crack. What you see first is a door that won't close properly, a window that sticks, a hairline crack in the plaster upstairs. The symptoms are far from the source. And urine odor is that stuck window. It's a symptom that appears far from the organ, carried through the plumbing, easy to explain away with a dozen harmless excuses. His advice was simple, and I've carried it with me ever since. If a new smell lasts more than a week and water doesn't fix it, ask someone about your pancreas. Not Google, not a chatbot, an actual human being with a medical degree and a stethoscope. Get your fasting blood sugar checked. Ask about your lipase levels. If there's any suspicion, an imaging study, a CT scan, or an MRI can look at the pancreas directly. These are not expensive tests in most cases. They are not painful. They are simply not requested often enough because people don't know to ask. I keep thinking about Claudette. 3 months of cranberry juice. 3 months of a well-meaning daughter giving well-meaning advice that had nothing to do with what was actually wrong. Claudette's metallic urine smell turned out to be connected to early chronic pancreatitis, inflammation that had been simmering for who knows how long, slowly reducing her enzyme output, slowly changing the composition of her waste. By the time she saw a gastroenterologist, she'd lost 12 pounds without trying. Her skin had started to yellow slightly. She told me later, I spoke with her while researching this, that she wished someone had told her that urine odor was worth mentioning to a doctor. I thought it was just me getting older, she said. I thought bodies just start to smell different. They do, but not like that. Not that kind of different. So let me give you the practical part now. What should you actually do with this information? Because I refuse to be the kind of person who describes a problem for 20 minutes and then walks away without handing you something useful. First, I want you to develop what I call a bathroom baseline. I know that sounds odd, but just as you know what your skin looks like normally, or what your energy level usually is at 3 in the afternoon, you need to know what your urine normally smells like. Not an obsessive daily inspection, just a general awareness. Most healthy urine has a mild smell that varies with hydration and diet. Coffee makes it smell roasted. Asparagus makes it smell sulfurous. A big glass of water an hour ago makes it smell like almost nothing. These are ingredients going through the kitchen and being processed correctly. Normal. What is not normal is a persistent new smell that hangs around for more than 5 to 7 days, regardless of what you eat or drink. Especially sweetness. Especially that heavy, greasy, musty quality. Especially ammonia that doesn't fade when you're well hydrated. Second, don't self-diagnose and don't spiral. I say this because I spiraled badly during my mother's situation, and it helped no one. If you notice a concerning smell, write it down. Write down when it started. Write down what you've been eating, and bring that note to your next doctor's appointment, or make an appointment specifically for this purpose. You don't need to walk in and say, I think I have pancreatic cancer. You can walk in and say, I've noticed a persistent change in the odor of my urine over the past 2 weeks, and I'd like to rule out any metabolic or digestive causes. That sentence right there will get any competent doctor's attention. Third, and this one comes straight from my heart, if you have a parent, a spouse, a sibling, or a friend over 50 who lives alone, ask them. I know it's an awkward question. I know nobody wants to bring up urine at a Sunday brunch. But I'm telling you from the floor of personal experience that the people most at risk of missing these signals are people who live alone and have no one to notice changes on their behalf. My mother would never have brought it up if I hadn't been in her house that weekend. She would have kept cleaning the toilet and spraying air freshener and telling herself it was nothing. It wasn't nothing. There's one more thing I want to address because I promised Dr. Winslow I would, and because this isn't black and white, it's layered. Not every unusual urine smell points to the pancreas. Urinary tract infections can produce strong, foul odors. Certain medications, particularly some antibiotics and diabetes drugs, can alter urine smell. Liver problems can create a musty or particularly dark-smelling urine. Kidney issues have their own signature, and sometimes, genuinely, you just ate something weird. The distinguishing factor, the thing that should move you from, that's odd, to, I need to call someone, is persistence plus combination. A strange urine smell that lasts more than a week and unexplained weight change. A strange urine smell and new digestive problems. Bloating, pale stool, discomfort after fatty meals. A strange urine smell and fatigue that doesn't respond to sleep. A strange urine smell and a blood sugar reading that's suddenly higher than your baseline. The pancreas doesn't usually send just one signal. It sends a cluster. But the urine smell is often the first one, the earliest, the quietest, the easiest to dismiss. And in my experience, the one most likely to be waved off as just getting older. Getting older changes many things. The color of your hair, the speed of your step, the length of your patience with bad television. But it should not change the fundamental smell of your urine in dramatic, persistent ways. That's not aging, that's information. I think about my mother every time I work on something like this. She's doing well now, I want you to know that. She takes pancreatic enzyme supplements with meals. She monitors her blood sugar. She sees her gastroenterologist every 4 months instead of every 12. She's back in her garden, which is where she's happiest. And last week, she told me her tomatoes are coming in early this year because May has been unusually warm. But I also think about the version of this story that could have gone differently. The version where I don't visit that weekend. The version where she lives another 6 months with that sweet smell filling her bathroom and tells herself it's her soap, her medication, her age. The version where the foundation cracks further and the house starts to lean, and by the time anyone notices, the repairs are massive and uncertain. I don't want that version for your family. I don't want it for anyone watching this. So here's the quiet thing I'm asking you to do. Not tomorrow, not after the weekend, tonight. The next time you use the bathroom, just pause for 3 seconds. Notice. That's all. Just notice what your body is telling you. And if something seems different, truly different, not just the asparagus from dinner, please don't clean the toilet and forget about it. Please write it down. Please tell someone. Please let your body's letter be read. That's the promise I made to my mother, and it's the promise I'm making to you now.